Chapter 65, Yellow Rope. As soon as this thought occurred to him, Han Li immediately unclenched his fists, then spread his fingers open before picking up a nearby golden warrior and hurling it toward the golden warriors that were further away. One of the golden warriors that was standing still on the spot was struck head-on, and the tremendous force of the impact caused both of them to disintegrate, releasing a powerful shockwave that toppled several more golden warriors in the surrounding area. Han Li roamed through the area as he repeated the process, picking up one golden warrior after another, as if they were sitting ducks, before hurling them through the air to strike the golden warriors that were further away. As for the gray lightning and the attacks from the strange birds that he was unable to dodge, he merely ignored them and allowed those attacks to strike his body. After just a few seconds, the meticulous formation of the golden warriors had been plunged into complete chaos by Han Li's disruption. Tong Rene's expression darkened slightly upon seeing this, and he yelled, "We can't afford to delay any longer. Let's end this." As soon as his voice trailed off, he immediately flipped a hand over to produce a rusty yellow badge, then made a strange seal with his other hand as he quickly chanted an incantation. Dazzling yellow radiance instantly appeared on the surface of the badge, and Han Li's attention was immediately drawn to it. He didn't know what this badge was, but a premonition of danger had welled up in his heart in the instant that it was summoned. However, before he had a chance to do anything, the yellow badge flew out of Tong Rene's grasp, then transformed into a burst of scintillating yellow light that appeared in the sky above Han Li. The badge then began to revolve in mid-air as circles of strange spirit patterns lit up all around it. All of a sudden, all of the thousands of golden warriors that were standing still on the spot raised their hands above their heads in unison before crossing their arms. Dazzling yellow light began to radiate from their bodies, then quickly converged to the point where their arms were crossed before erupting into the heavens. All of the yellow light connected together in the sky before expanding in all directions to form a yellow light barrier, which instantly encompassed an area with a radius of over 10,000 feet around Han Li. In the instant that the yellow light barrier appeared over him, Han Li immediately felt an incredible weight crashing down upon him, as if he were being crushed under a giant mountain, and his movements had become noticeably slower and more sluggish. Right at this moment, plumes of yellow mist rose up from beneath the ground, then intertwined with one another to form lengths of yellow rope that flew toward him like a nest of spirit snakes. The lengths of rope quickly wound themselves around his body, binding him tightly in the blink of an eye. Before he knew it, his waist, arms, and legs had all been individually bound tightly to the ground, rendering him completely immobile. Han Li's brows furrowed tightly upon seeing this, and he activated his Big Dipper origin arts with all his might. The 6 specks of blue light on his chest and abdomen brightened considerably, further enhancing his already unfathomable strength as he twisted his body violently. The lengths of yellow rope around him were instantly stretched taut, and the thinnest lengths of rope among them were trembling incessantly. Even though they were still binding him to the ground, they were no longer able to completely restrict his movements. At the same time, the yellow gourd that Duan Renli was holding had already flown into the air above his head, where it was suspended in midair in a completely stationary manner. Duan Renli opened his mouth to release several balls of blood essence onto the gourd, then began to chant an incantation. Bright yellow light flashed from the surface of the gourd overhead, and it quickly swelled to the size of a house. The golden runes drifting around the opening of the gourd also expanded drastically while releasing dazzling golden radiance. Countless yellow beans erupted out of the gourd in a frenzy, like a torrent of gushing water through a broken floodgate. The newly emerged golden warriors all rushed over to certain positions before also raising their arms above their heads and crossing them, releasing bursts of dazzling yellow light that fused into the yellow light barrier up above. Han Li clenched his fists tightly, and even though he was bound by the yellow rope, he was still able to throw several punches to destroy a few of the golden warriors and strange birds around him. But his movements were becoming slower and slower. It seemed that with each additional golden warrior that appeared, The more substantial the light barrier overhead would become, and the more yellow mist that would rise up from the ground. With the increased quantity of yellow mist rising up all around Han Li, the ropes that were binding him to the ground also became more and more resolute. His body was feeling impossibly heavy, as if there were several mountains weighing down on his arms, making it more and more difficult to continue to unleash attacks. The yellow ropes were also constantly constricting with greater and greater force, restricting his movements further and further. All of a sudden, golden light flashed over his body, and strands of golden fur sprouted out of his skin as he transformed into a giant golden ape in the blink of an eye, expanding drastically in size in the process. He had unleashed his 12 awakening transformations once again to adopt his giant golden ape form. Tong Rene and Taoist Closed Mountain both faltered slightly at the sight of the giant ape that Han Li had suddenly transformed into. Even though they had already learned from Duan Renli that Han Li possessed such a transformation secret technique, they were still stunned by the immense aura that Han Li was giving off in this form. "What are you waiting for, fellow Taoist Closed Mountain?" Tong Rene yelled as he stowed away the antiquated book in front of him, then focused his attention fully on controlling the array down below. Taoist Closed Mountain immediately returned to his senses, and a grim look appeared on his face as he chanted an incantation while making a rapid series of hand seals. Countless strange golden runes instantly surged out of his body in a frenzy, followed by a layer of dazzling golden light. At this point, the number of golden warriors around Han Li had already exceeded 10,000. Boundless yellow mist was surging out of the ground before flowing into the yellow ropes around Han Li to bolster them even further. And despite the tremendous strength of the giant mountain ape, the ropes showed no signs of tearing. A thunderous roar or fury rang out as a string of cracks and pops rang out from within the giant ape's body. All of its muscles then instantly swelled like balloons, while its golden fur turned as hard as steel needles before standing up on end. Following this process, the giant ape's body had doubled in size, expanding to over 300 feet. However, the yellow ropes around his body also rapidly expanded amid flashes of yellow light, becoming even thicker and more resolute, so he was still firmly bound, unable to escape. Right at this moment, the giant ape's body rapidly shrank down to its original size of less than 200 feet, but the yellow ropes also shrank alongside it, refusing to let it escape. No matter how the giant ape manipulated its own size, the yellow ropes were always able to keep up, as if they had been tailor-made for it, rendering its attempts to break free completely futile. "He's still trying to break free. How delusional!" Duan Renli chortled upon seeing this. "The time is now, fellow Taoist Closed Mountain," Tong Rene urged with tightly furrowed brows. Taoist Closed Mountain offered no response, but he swept a sleeve through the air to release a burst of golden light, which flew into the air above the giant golden ape's head, before revealing itself to be an antiquated azure scroll. Taoist Closed Mountain pointed a finger at the scroll from afar, and a beam of golden radiance instantly erupted out of his finger before flying into the scroll. Azure light flashed over the scroll, and it immediately unfurled itself in mid-air. A burst of dazzling golden light appeared on the surface of the scroll, following which a golden nascent soul projection that was around 5 to 6 inches in size flew out from within. The nascent soul bore the appearance of an elderly man wearing an ochre Taoist robe and a purple lotus crown, and it was very similar in appearance to Taoist Clearbright of the Origin Realm Temple. At the same time, Taoist Closed Mountain began to chant an incantation, and golden light flashed incessantly from the already unfurled scroll as a series of ancient golden runes flew out incessantly from within before surging into the nascent soul projection. The nascent soul was instantly enshrouded in golden light, and it gradually elongated before transforming into a giant golden sword that was over 100 feet in length. Countless peculiar golden runes were engraved onto the blade of the sword, and there were also circles of runes revolving around the sword as it gave off bursts of terrifying fluctuations. Tong Rene and Duan Renli couldn't help but exchange a glance in the instant that the giant golden sword appeared. and both of them could see their own astonishment mirrored in one another's eyes. The giant golden ape immediately raised its head to look up at the massive sword overhead, and it clenched its fists tightly as 6 huge spots of blue light appeared on its chest and abdomen. The muscles on its arms bulged as it tried to raise them with all its might to oppose the giant sword up above. However, the golden ropes around his arms instantly began to glow brightly before exerting even greater restrictive force. Even so, they were still unable to completely bind him, and he was able to slowly drag his arms back toward his chest. "Hurry!" Duan Renli yelled in an urgent voice. Tong Rene's face was slightly pale, and his fingers were moving in a rapid blur as he released one incantation seal after another. The yellow badge in the air instantly began to revolve at a far higher speed than before, and the bright yellow light also radiated from the bodies of all of the golden warriors down below, while more yellow mist rose up from the ground. As a result, the yellow ropes around the giant golden ape constricted around it with even greater force. The giant ape shuddered, and its arms were immediately snapped back to its sides again. At this point, Taoist Closed Mountain finally completed his incantation, and with a triumphant roar, the giant golden sword in the sky came crashing down directly toward the golden ape's head as an enormous streak of golden light. The giant sword rumbled through the air as it tore through the space beneath it, leaving countless thin gray rifts in its wake, all of which were releasing powerful spatial fluctuations. The area encompassed under the sword began to shimmer and warp, becoming extremely blurry and indistinct. Even the clouds up above were being warped and displaced, and none of the strange birds circling around in the sky were able to get out of the way in time, letting loose anguished cries as their bodies instantly disintegrated into nothingness. Meanwhile, the giant golden ape was completely bound by the yellow ropes around it, reducing it to nothing more than a massive sitting duck. In this dire situation, the giant ape suddenly raised its head and let loose a thunderous roar. Scintillating golden radiance erupted out of its entire body, and countless golden scales emerged over its skin, while a single azure horn appeared on its head. In the instant that the giant sword descended upon it, the golden ape tilted its head back slightly, so that the horn was best positioned to oppose the giant sword. An earth-shattering boom rang out as the tip of the giant golden sword crashed heavily into the azure horn on the golden ape's head, upon which all of the golden light radiating from the sword instantly shattered before scattering through the air as boundless specks of golden light. The entire surrounding space trembled violently as dozens of gray rifts appeared around the giant sword before fading in a flash. All of the golden warriors in a radius of close to 1,000 feet around the giant ape also exploded violently. Amid the shower of resplendent golden light, the golden sword trembled violently before folding to an impossible angle, following which it was repelled back through the air. As for the giant golden ape, it only shuddered slightly before returning to its original form, and it seemed to be completely unscathed. "Impossible!" Taoist Closed Mountain exclaimed in an astonished voice. Tong Rene and Duan Renli were also looking on with their mouths slightly agape in bewilderment.